thank you again for your time, Dave. I appreciate it. So the first question I have is, what motivated you to start your own company, from jumping from the corporate world to being an entrepreneur? What motivated you to start your own company?
I've always wanted to own my own company ever since I was a child. It was just one of those things. It wasn't about making a ton of money, although that's kind of fun, but it was really just about building something and having have control of it instead of reporting to somebody. Although what you realize later is that you actually report to every one of your customers.
Right. Right.
So, but I just always wanted to have a business.
Did you, so yeah, I know we can get into this too. I know you've owned multiple companies, but did you know exactly what you wanted your first company to be, or was it just,
No, I had no clue. I happened to be in technology, and my first company, it just came to me that back in, boy, I want to think around 1996, I used to have a pager and one of these brick cell phones. And every time I got a voicemail, I had to go call somebody and get the message. And this was back when text to voice and voice to text was becoming big. So I started a business, which was a unified messaging business, where I could take 4 or 5 phone numbers, turn them into one phone number. It would find you anywhere, your beach house, your home, your office, your car. It would give you could get your voicemails from the voicemail, and then just hit a number and it would call them back. So you didn't have to write down numbers. It did text to voice, voice to text. It was way ahead of its time. So I started that business, and 3 years later, we had 5,000 customers. And our EBITDA was like, I want to think, I don't know, 88 times earnings. So the company was very valuable, and a company out of Denver bought us because they wanted to do what we were doing. They were trying, but they weren't able to. And at that time, AT&T and Verizon were starting to get into that business. Now you can do it all on your cell phone. And I just thought that was a great time to exit, so we did.
Gotcha. So you built a successful company, hit it big, did what most business owners aren't even able to do, is sell for this massive amount of money. What'd you do next?
To a public company, which is really difficult. Because
what'd you do from there? Did you start another company, or did you take some time off? What'd you do?
I was actually in my home office when we actually finalized the deal. We did it over the internet. And I thought, okay, well, I'll take a year off, go play some golf. About 15 minutes later, I was on the phone with some people, figuring out what my next business was going to be, because I realized there's no way. I would think I was 39 years old.
Yeah.
There's just no way I'm retiring. So I started my next business, and May of that year, I had 2 more businesses going. So I sold it in January, and by May, I had 2 other businesses going.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And have all your businesses all been in the technology space, or have you?
No, the next 2 businesses one was a staffing company.
Okay.
And the reason I started that was I liked the model of monthly recurring revenues, and the margins were very good. And when I started that business, I was VP of sales of that telecom business back in the day. And everybody found out, who used to work for me, that I had this recruiting company, and they flooded me with requests for sales managers and regional managers. So I started another company called Executive Search Group. There I was with 2 businesses. The recruiting company just blew up and just was going crazy. The staffing company was doing well. So I hired people to run the staffing company. I brought an ex-guy in from my other company to run the recruiting company, and things were going great. 9/11 hit. That hurt. The staffing company was still doing okay, but I just didn't feel like growing a company in that industry during that time. So I sold that, focused on the recruiting. But recruiting, it's an ATM. You can make some money, but there's no real value to that business when you go to sell it. And I've always liked the exit strategies. And if you have a monthly recurring revenue locked in with contracts, you'll make more money when you go to sell. And so I sold the recruiting business to my partner and started building houses.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, obviously you exited 7 companies. Has it always been selling to a partner, employee, to a private equity firm, what is your typical exit strategy been from these companies?
I sold 2 of them to public companies, which is amazing because that's so rare. My last company I sold to Konica Minolta. I'll get to that later. But I sold them to either like businesses. I only sold one to a business partner.
Gotcha.
So it's either outright sale to somebody who wanted to buy a business or a business partner for the most part.
And then what'd you do, if you could put yourself back in your shoes of what you did to prepare, what types of things were you doing to make sure the company was ready to sell?
Yeah, well, that's the key that I don't think most people get. You've got to really understand your business very well. You've got to be able to present it to somebody in a fashion that they'll understand, because they're taking a big risk buying it. Most people are very nervous buying a business because they wonder, why are you selling it? So you got to get your financials straight, number one. You got to show increased revenue growth, increased margin growth. You got to try to get your retention very high, no attrition, right? Then you got to have the people in place. A lot of people want to sell their business, but they're the key player. And without them, the business doesn't have any value. So in all of my businesses, I made sure I had everybody in place so that I could walk away and this business would run itself. Matter of fact, that first business, I had a guy from Alabama. He's probably 25, 26 years old, but he's very sharp. I made him president of the company, showed him exactly how the company ran, went through the financials, got him up to speed to the point where I just didn't need to be there. And that company had a lot more value because there was somebody there to run it. Think about it. If you're going to buy a business and you don't know anything about it, there better be somebody there that does. And I locked him in with golden handcuffs. So most of the time when I sell a business, I'll give a piece of the business to the guy who's staying, but they've got to stay 12 months or they don't get that piece. So then the guy buying it goes, wait, that's great, because he's going to lose a lot of money if he quits. And that's their nervous piece right there as well. He might be there now, but in 2 weeks he could quit.
Right. Putting glue in the seats, making sure they stay.
Golden handcuffs, my friend.
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah, that's smart.
Yeah.
So when you think back to, your career, obviously being almost a serial entrepreneur, being successful, if you could go back and do something differently, or maybe have made a different decision, or have some sort of regret, or speaking to your younger self, is there anything you would have done dramatically different looking back?
Well, the funny thing is, experience is what it is. It teaches you these things. And if I could go back, there's things about some of the businesses I liked and things about some of the businesses I didn't. For example, the staffing company was a great business, but I'm a C-level sales guy. I've always met with C-level executives my whole life. And that sale is to the mid-market. You're talking to office managers, production managers, and they don't make the decisions the way the C-level does. And I didn't enjoy that sales process. And how sticky that business is not based on business values as much as it is relationships, which is fine. But the value proposition is really what I like. So there was one thing. I love building houses. It's just that, the selling part of it wasn't any fun because I couldn't control that. I'm not a real estate person. But the businesses that really were the best were the ones that had monthly recurring revenues that I could cross-sell. Gotcha. I've got a business right now I don't want to share it right now because I might still. That's awesome. I know I could blow it up in a million different ways, because the key is, you get these monthly recurring revenue businesses going, and you keep driving that main line of business, but then you don't realize, wait a minute, I can go back in and cross-sell other value-added services. So my last business, which was cloud computing, I did that. I went back in and cross-sold so many different things. What that does is reduce your attrition. I mean, if you've got so much going on within an organization and they want to leave, they got to change so much. It's just too hard. They don't want to do it. You've really got to be not doing a good job to lose that customer.
Right.
So if I had to do it all over again, I'd focus in on MRC, I'd focus in on cross-selling, and I'd put all the people in place and get them ready so that I could work less than 60 hours a week.
Okay. That was going to be my next question is, I think most entrepreneurs would say you probably have to work 1 to 40-hour work week to get this thing up and running. What was starting that first business like, going from, corporate America where you had someone to report to, how many hours a week did it take to get this thing up and running? How did you hire the right people? How did you find talent? You can just kind of walk me through, especially your first business,
Well,
what that was like.
well, I mean, I remember being in the office at 3 a.m. sometimes
Yeah.
and leaving at 7 o'clock at night because you can't afford to hire all the other people you need. So you end up doing multiple things, which takes a long time. And as far as hiring goes, that's always been my strength. I'm very good at reading people. I'm very good at getting into the background and understanding what motivates individuals. And just because somebody's a really good person and they got a great track record doesn't mean they're good for you. Because whatever job you've got them doing, they've got to really see the value in that and be motivated by what it's going to do for them. And sometimes, for example, you could take a strategic salesperson who's used to selling very high-end things and been very successful, sales cycle of a year, 6 months, whatever it is, and you put them in a more transactional sales environment where they're prospecting more, and the process might be 1 call to 5, and it might be no more than 3 months, they're going to hate it. So it's matching people up, understanding people, and when you get the right people, the business is going to run. As long as you've got a good business idea, a good value proposition, if you get the right people, it's hard to fail. But what I see with most companies is that the owner, 1, can't let go, doesn't know how to delegate. 2, doesn't know how to recruit and hire, doesn't know the right personality profile. And then even if they get the right person, they don't know how to cultivate and develop that person. They don't get them to buy into the value proposition of the company. And the salespeople or the internal staff has short-term decision-making versus long-term because they don't see the value. So it's all about getting that corporate culture to understand what you do and why, and make them understand that the most important people out there are their customers and that they're more important than you, and getting them to be excited about going out and doing whatever they've got to do every day or doing it in the office because they feel like they're adding value and they see a career path. If they don't see a career path, at least for me, because I hire motivated people. Now, there are some jobs out there where you don't want a motivated person. You want somebody who just wants to show up 9 to 5, but that's just not a business I would run.
Gotcha. And I have a question. You had mentioned before, so you started a company in the telecommunications space, sold it, and then you went to building houses. Were you actually building the houses, or?
No.
Okay,
No.
I was about to say that is quite a leap to do that. So how did you just decided, I think there's a lot of opportunity here, or you're just fascinated with real estate,
Well, I've always liked real estate, and I had some property. And the guy who built my house over in Gwinnett County a million years earlier was a great guy. I kept in touch with him. I just called him up and said, hey, I've got this lot, these couple lots. I think we can put some really nice houses in there. Do you want to go in on that with me? I've already got the lots. I'll do all the financing. I'll pay everything. And you just make sure the house goes up and stays up.
Very cool. Very cool.
He was a great guy, and we did very well. And we were going to keep going, but that's right when the real estate crisis hit. We said that we're going to hold off for now.
Yeah. Gotcha. That's very cool. Well, last question. If you're talking to a younger Dave Webster, a young aspiring entrepreneur, if you had to give them one piece of advice, one thing to kind of take with them when they're starting their company, what would it be?
You have to understand sales. If you haven't been in sales, you can still do it, but I think you really need to understand sales. 1, because you're the one who needs to go out and make those sales up front, unless you've got more money than you know what to do with and you can hire somebody. But the other problem is if you've never been in sales and you don't really know what a good salesperson is, you're not going to be able to hire one, because salespeople can all talk the talk, but they can't all walk the walk. So the biggest challenge I see with all of the businesses I've worked with and some of the people that I've tried to help is that their sales team is not in line with what they need and they don't know it. So I'm sure a lot of people will hear this and say, oh, I don't like that answer because they're not in sales. But if you have a strong sales background, it's a big plus. If you don't, find somebody who does and bring them into your business.
That's great. I appreciate that. That's a great answer. So, and again, Dave, I really appreciate your time. This is awesome. You have a really cool story. For those of you who haven't connected with Dave, you should. He's a great guy, serial entrepreneur, exited 7 companies, very successful, but so we want to take time out to kind of lay the groundwork for other entrepreneurs. So I really appreciate your time, Dave.
My pleasure. I wish you the best. And the business community should be doing great right now. The economy's going. This is the time to get a business going if you're really in the mood to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you again for your time, and I wish you the best moving forward, Dave.
All right. Take care, bud.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.